The Sikha we will be learning is in Lakut Sikhas, Chelik of Zion, the second Sikha of Parashas Tazria. The Sikha talks about Negoyim. And Nega is when a person gets a scab or a blotch or something, and it's of leprosy. It could be on a person, it could happen on a garment, it could happen on a house. And when that is, it makes a person tummy or the garment tummy or it makes the house tummy. There are different dinim when it's tummy, when it's not. In order to know when it's tummy is not, you got to know the din if it fits to the conditions that make something tummy. And in order for that to happen, you have to have somebody who's well versed in the halachas of the goyim, and he has to look at it, and he will say whether this fits to the conditions and it's tummy or it's not tummy. The same thing, if it is tummy, the same thing happens when later on when it heals and it has to become toyer, you have to have again somebody come to look at it and see that now it fits the condition that it's not tummy anymore. While if it's tummy by a person, then the person has to be isolated. He's tummy worse than the other tumas. He has to stay all alone outside the city, etc., etc. He has to be all alone. That's if the person is tummy. Another thing here, we'll see that in order for the negative to become tummy, even after the chacham, the expert sees and he says, yes, this fits to the condition, and it is tummy, the person is still not tummy. The kohen has to come and say tummy. The same thing, if he was tummy, and then now it healed, he's still tummy. He doesn't become toyer till the kohen comes and says that he is toyer. That's the din that is the din by tzaras. The person who becomes tummy is called a metzora, and the tumah is called tumas tzaras. And the Sikha talks about that dinyan. Benegeya tumas negoyim zayne veran zwei klosdike dinim. Concerning the tumah of negoyim, there are two general dinim. And as the Rambam says in Hilchos Tumas Tzaras, the Rebbe brings in Orah 1, Perik Tes Aloch Aleph to Gimel. What are the two things? The Riyas HaNegev Tzikeveya Zayin Tzias is a nega tomei the need to see the nega, to establish whether the nega is tomei or not. Muz Zayin durch a Chocham has to be through a Talmud Chocham, to a Chocham, to a scholar. But as the Rambam says, Yereinu Rabbi, number one, his Rebbe, his teacher, taught him these halachas, and he's versed in it. He has to be baki, he has to be well versed in all the different types of negoyim and in their names. Benigay Yodam, Kulam, Benigay Gotim, Benigay Batim. In the negoyim, all kinds of negoyim by a person, all kinds of negoyim by garments and by houses. When the Chocham Muslim sein Dafka Kayan, the Chocham that's going to look at it and decide whether it's Tomei or not, doesn't have to be a Kayan. Nor Hakol, Kshein, and Liris as a Negoyim, as the Rambam says, any person could see it, as long as he has the conditions of being a scholar and receiving it from his teacher, the laws, he could see and come to a decision whether it's Tomei or not. That's to see it, whether it's Tomei or not. But the Rambam says that whether it actually becomes Tomei, or later on, if it's Tomei, later to become Toyer, if it actually becomes Toyer, that depends on a Kohen. Even after the Chocham established that this nega is Tomei. Where der Menuga ni Tomei, the one that has that nega does not become Tomei. Bis a Kohen zogt, unless the Kohen says Tomeyato, you are Tomei. When the Kohen says it, he's Tomei. Same thing by a beged. If he looks at the beged, the Chocham says, yes, this is a bad one, this is Tomei one. The Kohen says this beged is Tomei, or the house is Tomei. Same thing later on when he is going to become Toyer. As I feel when their mensch or their beged wird ausgeheilt from them nega, even after the person or the garment becomes healed from this nega, bleibt bitamose. He still remains Tomei. Achi yemer lekein Toyer until the Kohen will say to him, you are Toyer. Und das was the Amira von Akein is at Naili Kuvet zu schaffen, the Chales Tumah Vatare. This that we said that the fact that the Kohen has to say, in order to make him Tomei or make him Toyer, it has to be through a Kohen, is Ba'ifin is in such a way, I feel as a Kohen Sheini Yedei, even if the Kohen can't see. And I feel like a Kohen Kotne Sheiter, the Kohen was a child or a Sheiter, not 100% normal. Is there Seimech al Divrei HaChocham? He relies on what the Chocham says, meaning, HaChocham Reyeyu, the Chocham looks at it, Ve'emer Li, and he says to the Kohen, Amer Tomei, say Tomei. Kayan says Tomei, he becomes Tomei. Then if it happens to be Toyer after he's finished and he's healed, the Chocham looks at it and says to the Kayan, Amer Toyer, say Toyer. The Kayan says Toyer, he becomes Toyer. That's the din. Davon hat man was Border, the Rebbe says, we need an explanation. The Baal and the Kayan is say, wie sich say, Mechal Divrei HaChocham, was is Negei Amiras HaKayan Davke? Since the Kayan, anyway, he relies on what the Chocham says, so why do we need this Kayan to say it? Anyway, it depends on the Chocham. So what do we need the Kayan for? Second thing, was in the Rinya Miyuchid in Tumas Saras, was dafke by der Tumme sagt on Teira Zachidish as the Tumme Vatarat Lui became. What's so special? What's so different by this Tumme of Tzaras that by this Tumme dafke the Teira says such a Chidish, something new, which we don't find by other Tummes, that the Tumme and the Tara depends on the Kain. There are other types of Tumme. If you touch it, that body becomes. There's no din that a Kain has to come and say you're Tumme. If you touch that body, you're Tumme here also. If you have the neg and the Chacham says yes, it fits the condition, it should be Tumme. Why dafke here? The Torah says by this Tumme that the Tumme and the Tara depends on the Kain. Even though, as Rashi says, and it seems from the Rambam that way, it's called Gzeres HaKosov. Gzeres HaKosov is an expression we use, a decree of the Torah. No reason behind. We don't know any reason behind it, so we can't ask questions. Seemingly, it's Gzeres HaKosov. So the Rebbe says we still could want to understand. So, but you do what the Rambam says. We know what the Rambam says. I feel about Chukia Torah, even by Chukim of the Torah, what's Gzeres saying? They're decrees. Chukim, the word Chukah refers to those parts of Torah, those mitzvahs that have no reason. We don't know the reason. So the Rambam says, even though they are gzeiras, their decrees is royalis beina behem v'chol mashat yochen litin litam ten litam. You have to think about it, and any reason you could give, any explanation you should give. Or bifrat, especially not just an explanation. Atam vosif arbun mitikan adeis, to give a reason, to give an explanation that will help you fix your midas, fix your attributes. It'll help you being meaning in avodas Hashem. Kelosh the Rambam says in a different place, as Rev Dina Teira Einel Eitzes, Lesakan Adeis Ulyashak Alamaisim, that most of the dinim of the Torah are advice, how you fix your attributes, you fix your deis, and how straighten down your maisim. So Amela, the Rambam says it's a good idea to look into, try to understand, certainly if it'll help you in Avodas Hashem. Or the Beloshna Kosovo, or like the Posik says in different places, by Yitzavena Hashem as Kolach Chukim Liras Hashem. The Posik Hashem says, Hashem commanded you all the Chukim in order to have fear of Hashem, which means a hero in Aninyan for Yerushalayim. All the mitzvahs, even the Chukim, is a hero lesson Yerushalayim. So we have to understand what's the lesson here, because otherwise we don't understand what's the idea. Why do we need the Kain? Then the Rebbe said the kasha goes even stronger. The Ike Chidesh HaTorah as a Tumah V'Tara Tlui B'Kein Riksechu is bepashtus nit in Taras HaMatzera and the Bikir and them was there is in Metame. Rebbe says like this. This that we say that it depends on the Kain. Making a Tomei depends, making him Torim depends on the Kain. Mainly is making him Tomei. In other words, the reason why, as the Rebbe will explain, we need a Kain to make him Toyer makes sense, because if the Kain can make him Tomei, so who will make him Toyer? The Kain. So he says, and the Rebbe explains, and that's why, so mainly the Rebbe says the main reason is by Tumah, that the Kain we need for the Tumah. For in the Metzias from Taras HaMatzera, can come and Neshnoten, we see free given Tumah HaMatzera. To make the Metzera Toyer, when we talk about how he becomes Toyer, comes only after he was Tomei. You can't become Toyer if you weren't Tomei. So when we talk about Taras HaMatzera, we're talking about he was Tomei, and now we need something or somebody to make him Toyer. It makes sense to say, Ados was Taras HaMatzera Tluya B'Kein, is Mesuvav, therefore was Tumas Matzera Tluya B'Kein. Why is the Tara, the purity of the Tzaras, depend on the Kain? Because the Tumah, which came before that, depended on the Kain. The says it means, Vibaldas, the Tumah shaf sich nor durch Amiras HaKain, the Ribe darf the Tara from the Tumah, Uvgetan werden Tafket, then HaKain. Since the Tumah happens only because the Kain said, so to take that away and to make him Torah, you need the Kain. So that makes sense. The question is going to be, but that itself, why is the Tumah depend on the Kain? The Tara, we understand, depends on the Kain, because the Tumah does. But why does the Tumah? Now it's even harder to understand. If we say just even if it wouldn't depend on the Tumah, the din would be that the Kain has to make him Toyer on its own, nothing to do with the Tumah. Not because let's say the Tumah doesn't have to be their Kain. We wouldn't even have a kasha. Why does a Kain have to be there to make him Toyer? We understand why. But if we'll understand why it depends on the Kain. Yes, as in verbunden mit Matze von Tara, since the union of Kain is always connected to purity. With the din is that there's a din as a Kain tor sich mit Metame sein. A Kain not want to become Tomei. The Kain has to be Toyer. So when we talk about who could bring Tara, purity to a Yid, is a Kain, because that's his job. So if the whole idea would be a Kain is needed to make him Torah, we'd understand why. But if Dafka Kain sein, that was paled as the Rizal sein Tomei, why is Dafka to make him Tomei? You need a Kain. What's the idea of having a Kain to make him Tomei? Yeshleimer eine von der Biurim, the Rebbe, we could say one of the explanations like this. But Tumas Raz gefindt man a Chumra, was is in Tobe andere Tumas. We find a strictness by the Tumah of this Metzera more than what we don't find by other Tumas. which is Boded Yeshiv B'chutz L'machne Mishaber. Boded Yeshiv, he has to sit alone, isolated. He has to sit outside the machne, outside the camp. Evet Aruz geschickt, B'chutz L'gim Machne. You have to send him out outside of the three machnes in the desert. There were three machnes, three levels, and he had to go outside the wall. And even that's a Yisrael later, it's also he has to go out of certain places. So first of all, he's isolated. Und in dem Gufe Boded Yeshiv, in the place that he goes out of the camp, he has to be alone. He has to be isolated. You can't even have other Tome Yeshvi Mime sitting with him. Rasha says, taken from the Gemara, he can't even sit together with other Tmeim. And the Rebbe in Ha'ora 16 says that he explained in Lekut Sichos Chelik of Beis that not only can he not sit with other Tmeim like Hatomi Mes or others, even with other Mitzayroyim he can't sit. That means, as der Ort von der Metzere is, I feel mechutz lamachte von andere Tmeim. A Metzere is so far kicked out, so to speak, even he cannot be even worse than other Tmeim, other people are Tome, other Mitzeroyim even. That's the deeper meaning in what the tumah of the tzaras is. Not only physically the stomach, there's much more to it. A tumah chamura kol kach, it's such a strict tumah. Der Adam atumah is in ganzen uysere machne kedusha. That the one that becomes Tome is completely outside the camp of holiness. Wird kilo ausgeschlossen, Rachmana litzlan, von sein Sheiche zu Yisrael gekodesh. He's excommunicated, Rachmana litzlan, seeming like excommunicated from his connection to the Eden, to the holy nation. And if them sagt Teire, so that's what the Teire says. Wer kann pasken auf a zweit Nieden, als ist kilo ausgeschlossen, chas v'sholem, vermachne de Gdusha, place again. Who could come out with a verdict that a Yid, to say about another Yid, that he's so bad that he's like excommunicated from the camp of Kedusha, only a Kain could do it. Why only a Kain? What's a Kain? A Kain is in Yonah Levorach Sam Yisrael Ba'av. A Kain, his thing is, as he says in the Broche, when he says Birchas Kainim, when the Kainim duchen, they bench, they say Yevrechach, etc., they make a Broche. The Broche is, you commanded us, Levorach Sam Yisrael Ba'av, to bless the Yidden with love. So we see a Kain has this quality of loving the Yidden. A Kain is the Risha Chesed, was benched Eden. A Kain is the man of kindness. As Zohar says it, based on the Pasuk. A Kain represents kindness, and his union is to bless. Bless is a kind thing to do, to give brachas. Ba'av, it has to be with love. Do you do? It's known what it says in Shulchan Aruch, Ados atnai ikrin birchas Kainim as a musayin ba'av. It's a main condition when the Kain blesses the Eden, it has to be with love. When Leib das Feld chaf shalom and Kain ha'mavorach, it says in Shulchan Aruch that if by the Kain there's missing the love, if there's somebody in the community that he's blessing, that he doesn't like, he says, Farim Asakon, it's a danger for him. The Kain must do it with love. Und Takem high time was the Kain, as Isha Chesed, verlost of the Teire, nor if him Zaruz geben, if Aiden was absagt from Chutz Lamachne. Only a Kain, because he has such Avos Yisrael, that's his Inyan, he is the only one that the Teire trusts to paskin that he has to be excommunicated. And by the way, the Rebbe says here in the brackets that this idea we're saying that the Inyan of Birchas Kainim is connected because that shows his level that he is obviously Yisrael blesses him, and that's the reason why he's the one to give the verdict of a nega is connected to another pasuk. This explains how now we understand the connection in the pasuk. That's another pasuk in Parsha Shoftim. The pasuk describes what a kayan is. So the pasuk is a kayan. What are the kayanim? Bom bochar Hashem elekecha l'shorsei. Hashem, your God, chose them to serve him, ulovorich v'shem Hashem, and to bless the name of Hashem, which refers to that Kayan bless the Yidden. And the pasuk continues, and they will, based on what they say, will be all arguments. It means if people argue, they will be the ones to deal with the case. And all nega, which means to say that something is a nega, depends on the Kayanim. And we see in the same pasuk, the Torah puts in that they are the ones that bench, and they are the ones that say that the nega is stomach, which means because Hashem chose them to bless. It means their quality is to bench, to bless the Farbal Pi and Yin Kol Rega. That's why they are the ones that are able to give out the psak din on a nega, which means like this. The Rebbe explains: Avad and Avad must the psak from Kain's am used to place of Torah. Certainly, the psak din, the verdict of the Kain, has to be based on Torah. But the father, therefore, is that's why the first thing is, who looks at it? A chacham, someone who's smart, a scholar in Torah. He's well versed and old in the goyim. A chacham that received the halachas, he knows his knowledge about these yonim from his Rebbe. So it came from his Rebbe, and his Rebbe from his Rebbe, etc., etc. So there has to be all based on Torah. But That's all the svaras behind it, the idea behind it, the philosophy behind it. When es kommt aber zur Abtrag, dem Psagdim Bepei, when it comes to actually do the verdict, muss das sein, dem Kayan Mishach Chesed. That's only the Kayan can do. The Kayan who is a man of kindness. From Dafke, feels the full Chemer, because only a person of Chesed, the Kayan, feels the full severity von Aruizge Masab Psagdin of Atzveit Niden, of giving out such a verdict on another Yid. And the Far, since he knows how terrible that is, because he loves Yidden, so to throw a Yid out of Klal Yisrael, he will be the one that the Nishporen kann gehen, he will not save any, hold back any hard labor. Und gut, he will definitely investigate and research and question the Chacham who gave him told him that this is a nega which is Tomei. But negate the Psagdin of Teira, concerning the Psagdin of Teira. And a person like this will make sure that from V'shofta Eide will come Vitzil Eide. What does that mean? It says in Pasuk, B'negeya Bezin, V'shofta Eide Vitzil Eide, that Bezin has to judge. Judge means to look at him if he's guilty, to look at the guilt part. But that has to also bring also Vitzil, Vitzil he shall save. That means you have to look on both sides. So a person, a Isha Chesed, will make sure that when the Chacham tells him that this is a nega, and therefore the person has to be communicated, he will really look into it and make sure that this is so. And it'll be not only a shofted, he'll try to find the veitzile, to find some kind of way to find that he's not excommunicated. Like it's known in the meaning of Ein Chacham Kabbalah Nesoy. In the Sefer HaKedah, it says an expression, there's no Chacham, like Bala Nesoy means somebody who has experience, someone who already passed the test. Now, simple pshat is that if he had the test once, and he passed that test, later on, that's stronger by him. That chokhmah that he knows in connection to that inyan is stronger because he went through it. But Chassidus in Samach Vov, Tofir Samach Vov, it says another pshat. When you learn something, and you learn the whole discussion back and forth, if you know that this is not just a discussion from the Torah perspective, the lomdus, the learning of it, but you know this is negeya, what's going to come out to an actual maise. It's negeya to the reality of what to do. Is mamik mit you say that the one that will learn this discussion will go deeper into it. Until you become to the truth inyan. Same thing here. If he's going to know, the Kayan knows that his psak is the one that counts, and he's a isha chesed, he will be very careful before he come out to such a psak. So a guy like that, a person like that, and after his investigation, after everything, he still comes to a decision that this person is Tomei, then we're sure that this is the real psak of Torah. That's one thing. We're sure that this is what Torah, because the Kayan, if it wouldn't be 100%, he would never have said it, because he's a chesed. Well, and on the other hand, another point, since it's the Kayan who really doesn't want to do it, but he feels that you have to do it, he'll do it. We're sure that the Kayan that the Kayan now will do whatever he can to bring back, to heal the person and to take away the tumor. Since the tumor he knows is so strict, so bad, because he's the opposite of it, he'll only do it if you have to, and even then he will see what he could do later on to make him toil. Now, order 26, the Rebbe says, we said that the Kayan will investigate the Chacham and make sure, but we said before that the Kayan could be even a cotton, could be a child, or the Kayan could be a shaita. So how do we say he will investigate? So the Rebbe says another point. Usually it's not like that. Usually he's not a shaita. So usually the reason is because he will definitely investigate with the Chacham and make sure that this is true. But even if not, there's another point here. When the Chacham knows that what he's paskening has to come out into Dibur, that he's going to say it, someone will say it, but it has to come down to earth, so to speak. So the Rebbe doesn't say these words, but even the Chacham himself will do more investigation, knowing that it'll have to come, knowing that it'll have to go through the Isha Chesed. The Kayan will be the one that'll have to say. So the Chacham really knows that the Kayan, even though the Kayan doesn't know the halachas, he's relying on the Chacham, but nevertheless, the Chacham knows that this is going to come through the Kayan, on the Kayan Isha Chesed, and the Chacham knows that this will have to be said, which means it'll come out into reality, so he'll be more careful. So now we understand why the Tumah, to make the person Tomei with the Nega, depends on the Kayan, because he's the only one that we trust that will be the one that if he says it, we know it's true, but anybody else, we will not really trust that it's really so. Maybe he does it for other reasons. And we'll see it even more from the lesson. The fun is the Eroh Berur, it's very clear the lesson. The Shas Mazet Adover Leitev Rachman Islam Batzveit Nidin. When you see something not so good by another Yid, it looks to us, to me, that other person is in such a low level because he took himself out of Klal Yisrael. This is an expression we say by the Agod and the Rosh. He took himself out of the Klal. And sometimes you look at the guy's so bad that he even doesn't belong in Klal Yisrael. And it's chas v'sholem nitroy, he's not deserving of being Machne Yisrael. That's what you look at, you think. Zok Torah, so the Torah says, Afila Chocham Godel, Boki B'chol HaTorah, even a great Chocham, who knows the whole Torah, und leit sein Shikul Adas in Chochmas HaTorah is Yene Roy zum Psak vom Chus Lamachna Mishaveh. And according to his evaluation, according to his Chochma in Torah, it seems to him that this person deserves to be thrown out outside of the camp. He's excommunicated. He's Eider Argita Ruiz Azah Psak at zwei Yidden. Before you give out such a verdict on another Yid, darf man sich freer, good, beidig sein, woman halt in der Mitte von Chesed Navis Yisrael. You have to look at yourself, see where am I holding, what's my level of kindness, and what's my level of Abbas Yisrael of another Yid. You have to know what it is. When the Eibes felt Chas v'Sholem and Abbas Yisrael, if you see that there's not really something missing in the true Abbas Yisrael, you have no right to come out with a decision. It means not in the case of a Tumat Zaraz. But the lesson is here. If you see another and you want to say this guy deserves, before you say it, make sure why you're saying it. Es kann sein, it's possible, as ein Psak stammt nicht von reinem Shikul Adas shel Torah, nor from Midas built him of Chulu. Because it's possible that the reason you're saying throw him out, get rid of him, is not because you really feel that according to Torah it should be. Maybe it comes from your Midas, your emotions, which are not completely pure. And you might do it because you have a nature of being bad or something, of being not so sensitive to other people. Could be a consequence of that. Torah says, the nega alain shafni the tumah. Torah says that the nega itself doesn't make the tumah. We said the nega itself doesn't make the tumah. We see that in different places in Rashi. No, the psak v'amiras hakein nishaches tumah yato peil adem atzeder zayin tumah. When the Kayin says, who is the Isha Chesed, he says you are tummy, that makes the tumah the Matzeda to become tummy. Kum tu is there, but is nit kan Kayin Isha Chesed. It comes out if you're not a Kayin, which means you're not a Isha Chesed, you're not a person of kindness. Pasken if a zweiten Eden mit Chusl machna mishove, and you pasken, which means in our time you would say on somebody, get him out of here, throw him out of shul, throw him out, whatever. He has to be Chusl machna. If you say that, and you're not in the level of a Kayin Isha Chesed, you know what? Zokte sheker. You're lying. If a guy says throw him out, and there is not just like by the Matzera, if a Chacham will say he's Tomei, and B'meila throw him out, he's Tomei, no, that's a lie. Because by the Chacham saying it doesn't make him Tomei. You have to have the Kayan. It means the Isha Chesed has to say it. So if a guy says throw him out, and you're not really like an Isha Chesed, you're lying. B'meila is Meitzi. He is a Matzera. The word Matzera means the person has leprosy, but Meitzi also means Meitzi Shemra, someone who gives out a bad name. That's called a Metzera. Someone who says Lashon Hora. But the Chazal in Gemara say on the posik Zeis Tia Teres HaMetzera. This shall be the laws of the Metzera when he becomes clean. So the Gemara says Zeis Tia Teirose shall Meitzi Shemra. This is the Torah, the laws of someone is Meitzi Shemra. And the Gemara goes in what it means. But the Gemara refers to the word. It says the word Metzera is connected to Meitzi Shemra. So the person who says throw him out, and he has to be thrown out, and he's not Isha Chesed, he's lying. So he's the Metzera, because the Metzera is Meitzi Shemra. Need nor at the Lashon Hora at Tzveit. Need not only is he saying Lashon Hora about somebody else. But Lashon Hora is Afa Pishay Merem is Lashon Hora, even if he's saying the truth, it's Lashon Hora. So even if he's saying the truth, the guy is so bad, it's still Lashon Hora. But besides that, what's Eich of them is the Reinish from the Goyim. Lashon Hora is also the punishment for Lashon Hora is also the Goyim, which is Saras. Like the Gemara says in different places. No, there is Meitzi Shemra, Eimer Sheker Achav. Meitzi Shemra is another level. There's a level of Lashon Hora and there's a level of Meitzi Shemra. Lashon Hora is if you speak bad about somebody, even if it's true. Meitzi Shemra if you're saying a lie about somebody. So this person who says, it could be a Chocham and smart, and he says, this guy deserves to be thrown out, and he's not in Isha Chesed, so he's saying Lashon Hora, number one. And number two, he's lying, because you can't throw him out, because only an Isha Chesed could throw him out, and you can't do that. and therefore he's alive. So this guy who does say on somebody, throw him out, thinking that because he knows Al Pidin, this guy has to be thrown out. He says it. So he's a Metzeder himself. So what should he do? What's the tshuva for him? You know what the tshuva is? What's the tshuva? What helps a Metzeder to become Torah? What should he do? So we tell him Metzeder, you should sit alone, be isolated, go out of the machna. That's what we tell him Metzeder. We're telling it to this guy. That guy who paskins on somebody else, he has to be thrown out without a kayan, meaning without being the Isha Chesed. We tell him, you have to go out of Chutz Lamachne. Bis wann wird sich nicht eingewöhnen zu gucken auf einen zweiten Nieden bei einem Teva, till he will get used to looking another Yid with a good eye, darf sich mavdil sein von anderen Yiden. Stay away. Separate yourself from other Yiden. Und nicht stellen sie mit seiner Lashon Hara reden und nicht so Hashem Ram. Don't bother them with your Lashon Hara and giving out a bad name, because that's all you are. So you have to stay away till you figure out to yourself, look from the side, that you have to look at every Yid with a good eye. That'll be your tshuva. From them nega is the only when this person who does it, who has the nega himself, the spiritual nega he has himself, till he will get cured, then the Deibishter will forgive him, with the tshuva, and Deibishter will forgive him and cure him. And when you behave with the true Avos Yisrael, in a neighbor for Avos Chinam, in a way that you love every Yid for no reason, that's what Avos Yisrael is. It does mavatal sibas hagolus yesinas chinam. It nullifies the reason for the golus, which is sinas chinam. Sinas chinam means that why didn't go to golus? Because they had sinas chinam. They hated others. They had sinned to another for no reason. So to fix that, we have to have Avos Yisrael for no reason. So this person has to have that. So the Rebbe says to us, having Avos Yisrael, the true Avos Yisrael, Avos Chinam, which is mavatal, nullifies the reason for the golus, which is sinas chinam. What will happen then? Shenikrat sarua. The golus is called sarua, and the Rebbe quotes it from a Medrash Mikarabba that the golus is called saruach. So you're mavatal by having Avos Yisrael. You're mavatal what the tzaras is, which comes because of the lack of Avos Yisrael. Right away, the gula will come, the true gula, the complete gula from Mashiach Tzidkenu, very, very soon.